Great to meet you. Thank you so much for taking a minute out for the program. I appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome.
So, before we get into your life as a improvement consultant, I want to begin with the question I always start with. COVID was such a big deal. 6 years ago, it changed our lives in so many ways. How did you get through that era, and how has it changed the way that you approach business and life in 2026?
Well, I was a classroom trainer, and as soon as COVID hit, all of my gigs, disappeared, evaporated, and I quickly had to learn how to do virtual training, which was a very steep learning curve,
Yeah.
and then to take what I did in a classroom, and I'm an accelerated learning trainer who uses all the senses, and you can't do that virtually. So having to figure out how to reconfigure that training and make it engaging as well as educational was a real challenge. I think that I have conquered that, but I've had a number of years to work on that since then, although I still much prefer doing training face to face. I think there's so much more learning that happens in the classroom between people and particularly at breaks,
Yeah.
which you don't have as an option when you're doing virtual training.
I agree. So let's get into the heart and soul of what you do on a daily basis today. I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of kids. It's career day. And one of the kids wants to know what you do for a living. How do you answer him?
I help managers learn how to set their employees up for success. And by that, I mean, I help them learn how to delegate so that employees have an opportunity to use their skills to do new things that keep them engaged and help them learn. I help managers learn how to create a very positive work environment where employees want to stay and do their best. And I also help managers learn how to help a performer who's struggling, how to give constructive feedback, feedback that will help that employee recognize the impact of the behavior that they're exhibiting and change it to the better. And these are really important because a good 60% of new managers fail in the first 2 years. And I don't think that they wake up in the morning going, ha ha ha, I'm going to be this terrible manager. A good 60% of them have never been trained.
Yeah.
And they began as wonderful high performers who knew how to do good sales or good technical work. And someone automatically assumed, well, then they must be a good manager. And a manager requires many different skills than, building a team. When does an individual contributor have to do that?
So before we dig into the components of what you do to help leaders do a better job, I want to know when you were 12, 13 years old, what was your dream job? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, I wanted to be a ballerina,
Okay.
or I wanted to be in international relations.
Okay. So are you originally from Madison?
No, I was born in Washington, D.C., and grew up in Maryland and then Long Island, New York.
Okay. That's where my dad was born in Brooklyn and raised in Long Island. He was from Massapequa.
Uh, Seacliff in
Okay.
Nassau County.
Okay, excellent. Very cool. So let me ask you this. In the realm of helping people get to a better place, businesses, there's a level of leadership that we all get taught early on in our lives. Who were the leaders? What did you see? Whether it was a president giving a speech, whether it was in front of you, your parents, what were the early examples of leadership and business acumen that formed the way that you would approach it?
Well, I saw what didn't work.
Okay.
My father went bankrupt, um, which had a huge impact on us, obviously. I saw Eleanor Roosevelt and thought that's the kind of leader that everyone should be. Someone who is empathetic and cares and is practical and sees needs and addresses those needs.
I went to Washington D.C. I ran a couple computer labs in the inner city for kids in the early 2000s. And we got a trip to go to DC, and I'd never really been up there. I loved it. I loved the subway system, being next to the monuments, that history. But I remember at one point walking, I can't remember exactly where I was at. It seemed like it was over by the monument, um, or the White House, but there was a thing on Eleanor, and I walked through it and I read all of this stuff on her. And it was amazing. I had no idea what a titan she was, how she lived what she preached, and how much she did for people. She has to be one of the most seminal first ladies that ever existed, the template by which everybody was aspiring to. So I always remember that whenever I hear Eleanor, it's like we hear that name, but do you really know what she was doing? So let me ask you this more specifically, going back to other parts of your life early on. What were some of the other things that made you want to dance and to and to eventually get into business and helping people and having that level of empathy? What were those things that were imbued in you?
As a child, I don't know that I could answer
Yeah,
that. I really don't. Um, I wanted to make the world a better place.
yeah,
And I knew that the role of managers is to set employees up to be successful. Because if they don't, they lose their jobs, they go bankrupt. Um, and I really wanted to travel the world and make a difference. And I've been lucky enough to do work in Africa, the Middle East, and Eastern Europe. So I've gone to Nigeria, Kenya, Zambia, Equatorial Guinea, Croatia, Jordan, the United Arab Emirates.
wow.
And I've gone to these places multiple times to do training. And
S-
the wonderful thing is you learn about the culture, you
Yeah,
learn about the food, you meet the people. And when I went to Croatia, I went there 10 times for 2 weeks at a time.
wow.
And I brought my 10-year-old son with me one of those times. And it he he spent the days with a family and he didn't speak Croat. They didn't speak English. But you know, when children are around each other, they pick up each other's mannerisms. And it occurred to me that if we could take children and have them go to just one other country, there would be no war.
Yeah, yeah. Who is your hero? Who is your inspirational force that's been a part of your life to evolve to where you're at today?
My mother.
Yeah.
My mother was the principal of the largest high school in Long Island, and she did that in her 60s and fought against the administration at that time to make sure that all children really weren't left behind. A very creative, wonderful teacher. And she also traveled enormously. She taught in the principal's workshop at Harvard. She's an extraordinary woman.
So if you could meet an extraordinary person alive on the planet today, anybody that's alive, spend some time with them, have a lunch, ask some questions, someone that might help you on your journey, who would you love to meet and talk to?
Simon Sinek.
Okay. That was quick. You knew that one. So
No question.
I'm curious, what is it when the alarm clock goes off in the morning? What gets your feet on the ground to do this work, to change lives, to take care of your soul? What is that energy for you every day?
I learn so much from the people that are in my workshops that it is exciting each day to see what am I going to learn today? And as well, what impact can I have today?
So, was there a was there an early experience that you had that kind of chiseled the way that you view the way that you do your work now? An early client, an early experience. I mean, we all have these seminal moments in our career journey. Do you ever remember having something like that that really kind of refined your vision and the way that you do your work?
What forced me to face how important it was that managers learn how to manage well was being in a toxic environment. I was asked by the head of our agency, my agency at that time, to investigate allegations against an alleged abusive manager. And I interviewed all staff, I interviewed the manager, I looked at documentation and emails and correspondence, made observations, and as a result of that, my report ended up having that manager demoted 2 ranges, but still a manager. And then my reward was to be told I was to report to that manager. The stress led me to lose the use of my left arm because the stress was so enormous. There was no way I was going to report to this man. He was going to retaliate against me.
Sure.
And here my administration had betrayed me. So I ultimately was able to transfer out to a different organization. And when they welcomed me and helped me move my things in, I cried
Wow.
because it had been such a terrible, toxic impact on my health, my well-being, my soul itself, and my belief in my organization where I had been for a good 12 years.
Wow. That's amazing. So let me turn that story into a different version here. You've gone to a lot of countries where there's a different level of a quality of life. There's a different level of poor and impoverished. But there's people that are kind. There's good things that are happening all the time. When you look at the trajectory of your life, what's one of the nicest things that anybody's done for you? Whether you knew them well or you didn't know them that well, but what was a moment that maybe changed the way that you viewed being empathetic or living your life?
When I went to Jordan, I was you I was used to being on a plane that took me from one place to another. Well, had a change in Amsterdam, and what I didn't realize was I needed to move my luggage from one to the other. So I got there with no luggage whatsoever. And they were kind enough to take me out and help me purchase clothing, got me situated. The kindness and generosity of the folks that I met, they hadn't known me from Adam,
Yeah.
was enormous. And I've always had a great fondness for Jordan because of that. But people have been kind everywhere I have gone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. So what do you think about when you see that big word retirement with little twinkling lights all around it? what comes into your mind? Is that something that factors in to your thought?
There are no twinkling lights, and retirement does not come into my mind. I have always, and Gloria Steinem talked about how we're not human beings, we're human doings, and that that was not a good thing. I have always been a human doing.
Yeah, yeah. So let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 18-year-old version of you. You walk into that room that you knew at 18, and she is sitting next to a film projector. You walk up and you hit the play button, and it's the life you've lived. In like 60 seconds, it's a highlight reel. Would that young version of you believe that your life turned out this way?
Oh, I don't think so. I don't think so at all. Um, Teaching, probably that part of it, since my mother was a teacher. Um, Training because my father was in several businesses and concerned about business, that part of it, I might think possibly.
Yeah. So let's say you walked into a room of everybody that you've worked with throughout the years, and you deal in business, and it can be a serious world. And you swim through that group of people to a podium, and you can tell them one fun story. Like maybe the first concert you went to, maybe you jumped out of an airplane, maybe you outran a bear, or just something that was really fun that's happened in your life that might make them think about you in a different way. What would be a fun story that you would tell that room of business minds?
Boy, I'm coming up with a blank.
Okay, you've said some great stories. Let me reroute it and ask you this. Being fortunate enough to be able to traverse the globe and see all these places in different cultures and different regions, what was one of the most unexpectedly magical places that you went to that blew you away?
In Kenya, going and seeing uh, thousands of flamingos
Wow.
in
Did,
one of the parks.
did you get a picture?
Oh, of course,
Okay.
many pictures.
Okay. That's my wife's favorite bird. I think she would just absolutely lose her mind if she saw something like that happen because they're such a fun, majestic bird. I've seen them in zoos, and you just almost look at it like it's not real. And to see that many of them would be amazing. So let me ask you this. Of everything that you've done and accomplished and become in your life, what are you ultimately the proudest of?
I'm also a trainer of trainers. And one of the things that I am proudest of is having people come up to me and say, I took your training 20, 30 years ago, and I still use what you taught me.
That's wonderful. So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, all of the business associates, everyone that you know in different varying capacities. But you ultimately run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I think I'm a generous, caring person who is concerned about the world and wants to see people safe, happy, secure, and is willing to do what is within her power to make that happen.
So, after all of this time, you've mentioned Gloria Steinem, you've mentioned some central figures that are very strong females, and obviously, we're living in a very strange era of rights getting repealed and heartbreak happening around us. Do you remain hopeful for the future of humanity, for what we're doing, for where we're going, for who we are?
I was listening to Rachel Maddow yesterday, and she was talking about how we don't give up. In Minnesota, all of the people marching, that ultimately I am optimistic remember my mother in her 80s when the current administration had their first administration. And it makes me ill to even say that.
Mm,
Um, and she had always written to New York Times and advised the president as to what he should be doing, including Obama, a strong liberal Democrat. And when I asked her about this, she said, "Well, this too will pass."
yeah,
And I have to believe that because what's going on today is so horrendous. It's
it is. And you know, the interesting thing about being able to travel to these antiquitous levels of governance and humans that you're going to. I mean, when you're going to Africa, you're going to the cradle, you're going to the beginnings of humanity, is you realize how young our democracy is. You know, and there's always going to be a Rome moment. There's going to be air bubbles. We're like teenagers on the landscape of the world. And I have to think that there always is a reminder of what you never want to do again. There's a template for what we will avoid. And this is the GPS traffic jam that's bad in the middle of the road that we will never recreate again. We will go around it. So, um, yeah, because it needs to happen. It's abhorrent. So let me ask you this: if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one event in human history with your own eyes, it won't create a tear in time like Back to the Future. It won't do anything weird. You just get to watch it happen, and you get to come right on back if you want to. What would you want to see?
I'm not sure why, but the 1920s.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're talking to a jazz guy. So that's when that was the golden age. That was like there, and there's something to be said about the afterglow of war and the relief of a population and the revival of arts and the revival of culture and, doing things at that time they had no idea were going to become iconic. You know, it's pretty amazing. So if anybody wants to take the next step, they want to hire you, they want to reach out, they have questions, any of the good business in your world, where do they go?
The best thing is to go to my website, which is Laurel, Laurel, and Associates, all spelled out.com.
And it's been up in the corner the whole conversation, so it should be easy for everybody to reference. This has been wonderful. Thank you so much for taking a minute up. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your spirit. I really appreciate it. It's been great.
Oh, thank you. You're a marvelous interviewer. I have enjoyed every minute.
Thank you. Me